All right, hello, my name is Catherine from SEB Housing, and this is the information session for the 4 affordable rental units that are going to be offered at Taj Estates of Franklin in Franklin, Mass. So the purpose of this session tonight is to give you a little bit of background information on the available units. I'll also cover the application, the eligibility and lottery process, and also what to expect after the lottery takes place. So if you have any questions during this session, you can go ahead or you're encouraged to type them into the chat function or unmute yourself to ask during the session. And this is a live session. It is being recorded. It will be saved to SEB Housing's YouTube channel and will be available tonight for anyone who wants to view it, who wasn't able to attend. And just want to real quick say that if anybody is viewing this after the fact and has questions for us, you can email us at info@sebhousing.com, or you can give us a call at the number that's on the screen here as well, if you think of anything after tonight or if you are watching this after the fact. So just for some background information on who we are, so SEB Housing, we're an off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we're not the on-site management team for Taj Estates. We haven't seen the building in person. We've been hired by the developer to market the affordable units, conduct this information session, collect and review applications to determine households' eligibility for the affordable housing program, and then we'll eventually be the ones running the lottery as well. So in the initial phases of this process, we are your main point of contact rather than the management team over at Taj Estates. But then further along in the process, you will have touch, obviously, with the management team after the lottery. So there are a few steps in the process, the first being to apply for the lottery. So you have to be found eligible for the affordable housing program based off of your lottery application in order to be a part of this affordable housing lottery. So you'll be in touch with SEB Housing during this pre-application or pre-lottery period, and we can answer any questions you have on the application, and we'll run the lottery. The second stage in the process is that if your position on the waiting list, which is created after the lottery, if it's high enough, you'll be put in touch with the leasing office over at Taj Estates, and you'll complete their lease eligibility screening, which is separate from the screenings that SEB Housing does to determine if you're eligible for the affordable housing program. So the lease eligibility with the management team is more of what you might be familiar with from renting elsewhere. So usually property owners are going to do a rental history check, credit check, background check, that sort of thing. If you pass that eligibility screening, that lease eligibility screening, you'll reserve one of the affordable apartments. And that's the point in the process where you're referred back to SEB Housing to complete the program certification. And that's when we're asking you to submit your supporting documentation like pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns, that sort of thing. And if you're determined to be eligible for the affordable housing program, then you will be able to sign that lease for the unit that you've reserved with the leasing office. So all that is to say, when you are first applying for this lottery, when you're submitting your lottery application, you don't need to submit you don't need to submit supporting documentation, meaning you just need to self-report on your lottery application what your total household income is, what your assets are, and that sort of thing. And you won't be asked to provide pay stubs or anything else until later in the lottery, or later after the lottery is run, if you're one of the top households on the waiting list. So in order to join this lottery or to apply for this opportunity, you're just self-reporting what your income is on the lottery application. So if you haven't already, we encourage you to go to our website at sebhousing.com. If you click on affordable housing opportunities and select I want to rent, there will be a page specific for Taj Estates of Franklin. And if you click on that, you'll be taken to a page specific for the property. It's going to have a downloadable version of the application, the information packet. That information packet contains a lot of the information that I'll be going through tonight, but we always encourage everyone to read that if you are interested in this opportunity. And also on that page on our website, you can download the lottery application. It is a PDF document that is there, so you can download that to your computer, your phone, and you can complete it that way, or you can complete a paper application. If you want one mailed to you, we can do that as well. And you can submit the application to us in one of several ways. So you could email it back to us, you could scan it to us as an attachment to an email, you could fax it to us, you can send it by regular mail, or if you are in the Needham area, we have a office in Needham at 257 Hillside Ave, and there is a secure drop box there that you would be able to drop the application in. So whichever of those options works best for you, that's how you want to get that application in. We do encourage you to get it in early if you are interested in this opportunity. It is fairly brief. It shouldn't take you all that long to complete because, again, you're just self-reporting what your income is. You're not submitting any verifying information at this point. That will come later on after the lottery. So applications are due by November 10th, and applications have to be delivered or postmarked by that date in order to be considered for the lottery. You don't need to be a resident of Franklin to apply for this lottery, and there actually is no local preference, so there wouldn't be any priority given to you if you were a resident of the town. Taj Estates does have a website. If you want to go and learn more information about the area, or they might have some more images or renderings of the property, you can go to tajfranklin.com. And we've been told that the units will be available for occupancy shortly after the lottery and all required household screening. So you shouldn't have too much of a wait between being approved for this opportunity and being able to move into the affordable apartment. So this is a brand new development. This is the second building, I believe, at the site. So that's why it's Taj Estates of Franklin 2. And so there's already a management team on site and all of that ready to go to do these lease screenings when the time comes. So there's a total of 33 rental units within the building. There's going to be 4 affordable apartments. And those apartments are going to only be leased to households who qualify for the affordable housing program. So households in this lottery need to have a total household or annual income at or below 80% of the area median income for the Boston, Franklin area. All units have a balcony and in-unit laundry. So there are 1 and 2 bedrooms. The 1 bedrooms have 1 bathroom. The 2 bedrooms have 2 bathrooms. The 1 bedrooms, there's 3 of them, 3 affordable 1 bedrooms, and there's 1 affordable 2 bedroom. The 1 bedroom rent is going to be $2,467, and the 2 bedroom rent is going to be $2,734. Those rents are set in accordance with a formula for the affordable housing program, and they take into consideration the area median income for Franklin. So the rents are the rents. They don't change based off of your income for this housing program. So that will be the rent for at least that first year of the lease. There could be a rent increase after the first year of the lease, but you would have advance notice of that, and it would never occur within the first year or with any lease term that you have. So the rent can't change within a lease term. We anticipate that there'll be more interested and eligible applicants than there are available units. So that's the reason that we need to have this lottery to determine the order of priority on the waiting list. So like it says here on the slide, so tenants will pay for the utilities. So that's gas, heat, cooking, hot water, electricity, and water and sewer. There is free parking for residents at the site, and there will be a fitness center as well at the property. So who's eligible for the affordable housing program? So there's 4 eligibility criteria for this affordable housing program. The first we kind of touched on a little bit already, but applicants have to have income amounts that qualify them for the affordable housing program. So that would be having an income at or below 80% of AMI. Those amounts are listed on your screen here. They're in the information packet. They're on the application. So you will see those amounts everywhere. And I'll talk more about them in just a minute. The second item to keep in mind for eligibility purposes is that household priority is going to be given based on household composition. So For example, if you're a one-person household, or maybe you're a couple that shares a bedroom, you're generally considered to be a type 1 household by this affordable housing program. You can apply for a 2-bedroom unit, but the larger type 2 households are going to have a more favorable place or position on the waiting list because they're considered type 2 households and will have priority on that waiting list over type 1 households. Type 2 households might be, any household with 3 or 4 people in it, as well as some 2-person households. There's a breakdown of the household types in the information packet, and also when you're filling out your application, you're indicating what household type you are, and we will verify that for you. Households, another eligibility criteria is that households can't own a home upon move-in. So if you own a property when you're applying for this opportunity, it would need to be sold prior to completing your program certification or moving into the apartment at Taj Estates, which would mean your name would need to be off the deed. And then finally, this doesn't come up too often, but households can't have financial interest in the development and can't be considered what the program defines as a related party. So that would be if you work for the management company or the development team, you wouldn't be eligible for this lottery opportunity. And then just to circle back more on the income eligibility criteria. So these affordable apartments are being made available to rent at prices that are lower than the market rate apartments, even though the units are either identical or very similar within the building. So that's the reason there will only be rented to households who qualify for the affordable housing program. When we are counting your total household income, we are counting it as a projection of what your income will be for the next 12 months for all household members. So your total household income cannot be above these maximum income limits for the program. So if you're a one-person household, your total household income has to be at or below $92,650 in order to qualify for this opportunity. And then as you can see, if you're a 2-person household, it needs to be below $105,850 and so on. Those are maximums, meaning that it's a program rule. Your total household income cannot be above that amount. If you submit an application with a total household income that's above that amount, you will get a denial notice, unfortunately. We have to count your total household income as your gross household income, so the amount you make before taxes. So most people aren't taking home the full amount of a salary, but we do need to count your before taxes gross income. And how we calculate income isn't one size fits all because everyone's circumstances are unique. So some people might have a very consistent weekly salary throughout the year, but there are other people that are per diem or maybe working seasonally or are self-employed. And in those circumstances, we might have to ask you for more information than just the last few pay stubs in order to anticipate what your income was over the last 12 months. And if you're self-employed, you actually need to submit a profit and loss statement for your business. And we have a template for that if you need it. So generally, any income that you have been making in the previous 12 months, we need to continue counting unless there's definitive documentation confirming that you're no longer going to be eligible for that income in the future. So maybe you switch jobs and you have confirmation from that previous job that you're no longer working there, even though it's showing up on your tax returns, that sort of thing. So when you're completing your application, your lottery application, you want to make sure that you are listing all income on your application. So not just your wages, but if there's anyone in the household who's receiving Social Security benefits or child support income, a pension, anything like that, you want to make sure you're listing it on your application. And there's no minimum income requirements for the affordable housing program. However, most management companies, including the team at Taj Estates, they want to be sure that all tenants can afford the rent, right? Regardless of whether or not you are renting an affordable or a market apartment. So the management team has set a minimum household income equivalent to 2.5 times the monthly rent. Those amounts are listed in your info packet, and they're also on the screen right now. So if you're a one-person household, or excuse me, if you're looking to rent a one-bedroom, your income would need to be between this approximate minimum income, so $74,000, and the maximum income for your household size. Same with the 2 bedrooms here. I also want to say, too, that households with mobile housing vouchers, like a Section 8 voucher or an MRBP voucher, you can disregard that minimum income amount because it doesn't apply to you, since the agency that administers your voucher is going to be picking up a portion of the rent. So you just want to confirm with the agency that administers your voucher, so the housing authority or whoever administers your voucher, you want to confirm with them that the rents are within the housing authority's payment standards and are permissible, because you want to know sooner rather than later if the amount could work for you. But applicants without a voucher, you do need to have an income between the minimum set by the agency set by the leasing office, and the maximum income amount or maximum income limits for the program. The only exception to that is if you're a household who has an income that is just below that minimum income amount, it is going to be up to the leasing office whether or not they will approve your household. And that is because those amounts are not set in stone. They're not program requirements. So if you have a lot of liquid assets, for example, maybe you have a lot of money in your bank account, they could choose to use that towards your total household income to in case you were able to access that to pay rent. But in general, you need to have an amount above those minimum income amounts there. There is no asset limit for affordable rental opportunities. So you could have a lot of assets in the bank. You might be retired, for example. And even though there is no asset limit, the program does still require us to collect any information related to your assets. So bank statements, that sort of thing, we will still need to ask for those, even though there is no limit. And the reason for that is because if any of your assets are generating income, we need to count a portion of that income that's being generated, or interest that's being generated with to your total household income. So that would be, checking savings accounts, a retirement account, that sort of thing that we would need to confirm. So your lottery eligibility. So if you're interested in this opportunity, again, we encourage you to apply, get your lottery application in. And I do want to mention too that when you're filling out the application, you can apply for more than one unit size. So if you think you're interested in both the 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom, you should indicate that on your application. There's no downside to doing that if you think you're interested in both. And then we'll review your application and contact you if there's any information that is illegible or appears to be missing, and you'll have a chance to resubmit if necessary. And when you're completing your application, actually there's no online application. So I was going to say if you're completing your application online, but we don't have that option for this lottery. So once we get your application, if you are eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent an email. In the email, it's going to have your lottery application number. It's going to be in the form of a series of numbers. So that's not a ranking of any sort. It's just meant to be an anonymous identifier as the number that's going to be called in the lottery. So if you were the very first person to be found to be eligible for the Taja Estates lottery, your lottery application number would be A.001, for example, and then we'll just go up from there. That email you receive confirming your eligibility is going to also confirm the bedroom size that you applied for, or if you apply for both. And it's also going to give you some more information, like a link to a documentation requirements guide, which is basically just a document that you're going to want to reference to begin to gather your documentation. So how many pay stubs we might need from you, how many tax returns, what other types of information that you should be putting together so that you're ready after the lottery if you are asked to move forward in the process. So take a look at that email when you get it, and if you have any questions on it or if anything looks incorrect based off of what you thought that you submitted with your application, please let us know. Because you don't want to be entered into the lottery for a bedroom size that you didn't apply for example. If at any point during the application process you're found to be ineligible for the lottery, maybe you're considered to be over income, you'll be informed by email as well, and you're encouraged to contact SAB Housing with any questions. The lottery itself will take place at 6 p.m. on November 24th, so it's going to be similar to this format of the info session in that it's going to be a Zoom call. We'll screen share so you can see the lottery happening, and you want to keep in mind during the lottery as well that you're not going to know during the drawing exactly where you're going to fall on the waiting list, because we still need to sort the results after the lottery. So for example, if you're a type 1 household, but you only applied for a 2-bedroom unit, if there's any type 2 households who were drawn ahead of you, you're not going to be first on that waiting list, even if you were drawn first in the lottery. So later on that evening is when I would send out the waiting list to you. And that would, obviously, you'd have a much better understanding then as to whether or not you were at the top of the waiting list or if you would be called forward to the next step in the process, which would be getting in touch with the leasing office to complete your lease screening. So just know that during the lottery, you don't need to be present for it. If you want to, you're certainly invited to attend, and all of the results will be sent to every household who has applied for the lottery afterwards. Although there's only 4 units, everyone who applied for this lottery and was found to be eligible will have their lottery application number drawn. So sometimes you think, there's only 4 units, they're only going to draw 4 numbers, but that isn't the case in this lottery. The purpose of the lottery for these affordable housing units is to establish an order of priority for those waiting lists. So in general, it is better for you for your number to be called early in the lottery, but it might not necessarily be the deciding factor because of what I just mentioned with the household type. And if you're drawn later on in the process or later on in the lottery and your number is further down the waiting list, that doesn't mean that you won't have the opportunity to move forward in this process to rent one of the units. It just means that the households ahead of you on the waiting list would need to drop off or lease a unit before we moved on to your position on the waiting list. And that happens all the time. There's some applicants who apply for multiple lotteries. They choose not to move forward. They're found to be ineligible. So just keep that in mind. So once we have populated the waiting list after the lottery and you will be sent that email, you will get all that information about next steps from us. If you're one of those top households on the waiting list, you'll be invited forward to apply for a lease with the management team. So you'll be given the management team's contact information, and they'll be giving your contact information so you can schedule a time to complete that lease screening. And like I said, if you pass their lease screening, meaning you've done the background check, the credit check, all that sort of thing, and you end up being approved by the management team, you will be able to reserve one of the affordable apartments. So if you're the first person on the 1-bedroom waiting list, for example, and you pass the lease eligibility screening, and you will have the first chance at reserving one of the affordable 1-bedroom apartments at Taj Estates. So that's the point in the process where it is beneficial to you to have the first position on that waiting list, because you get to decide, what's important to you when you're reserving one of the apartments. Maybe you want to be on the 2nd floor, maybe you want to be in a corner unit, anything like that. If you are the first person on the waiting list, you will have that opportunity to select from all of them. When you're completing that lease screening, you'll have about 5 days to connect with the management team. So just make sure that you're paying attention to any information coming into your inbox from them. And it's possible that they're going to be screening more households than there are available units, just to get the process moving. So there's only one 2-bedroom affordable apartment at this property, but it's possible that they will be screening more than one household. So just make sure that you're, like I said, making sure to be checking your inbox and confirming any deadlines that they give you. Once you're lease approved, like I said, you will reserve the apartment and the leasing office will notify us at SCB Housing and we'll contact you to coordinate the submission of your income, asset, and tax documentation. So remember, up until this point, you haven't submitted any verifying information. So you'll be asked to submit your pay stubs and all that. And hopefully you've been able to gather some of that information. You'll have about 10 days to get it into us. And we'll work with you. You know, it's a lot of information. If you submit a mostly completed application to us and you don't have all of your pay stubs, for example, or you don't have everything that we need, we'll just give you an incomplete notice and a deadline to get that to us. So we work with you. We want to make sure that you're approved if you're eligible. So don't worry if you're not able to get everything into us all at once. Just stay in touch with us. And then once you have, if you're approved, you can sign the lease with the leasing office. And once you're leased, you're done with screenings until the lease renewal date, which will start a few months before your lease renewal. So if you were to sign a lease with Taj Estates for January 1st, for example, probably around this time next year, you would be asked by their management office to start doing your recertification every year. So you want to keep all of your income information handy if you are renting one of the affordable apartments, because you will have to recertify your income each year. And during the recertification, if your income has increased, that's fine. Households remain eligible for the affordable housing apartment at the affordable housing rent amount, as long as the household income doesn't exceed 140% of the current year's AMI. So in order to qualify for this lottery, if you're a household of 2, you would have qualified for the lottery if you had an income at or below $105,850. That same family next year can make up to $148,190 at the time of their recertification in order to remain eligible to rent an affordable apartment. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there, obviously between the 80% and the 140% of area median income. So if your income increases, it doesn't mean that next year you would need to move out of the apartment or start paying market rent. You know, you could get a different job, or you could have a somewhat of a income increase and still be eligible. So that really covers the process and most of what I wanted to get through in the information packet. If you have any questions now, or if you have any questions for us, if you're watching this after the fact, you can feel free to email us at info@scbhousing.com or give us a call. Just a reminder that the applications for this lottery are due on November 10th, so just about a month from now. But yes, please get in touch if you have any questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.